Good evening, and welcome to the 2017 Graduation Commencement Ceremony for John Adams Academy. My name is Heather Brown, and I have the privilege of being the headmaster and your master of ceremonies for this evening. Please remain standing. Scholars, please rise for the posting of the colors and the singing of the national anthem led by our director of choirs, Mr. Greg Blankenbuehler, and performed by the John Adams Academy Virtus Choir.
Detail. Carry. Colors. Forward. March. Post the colors.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming. And the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Detail. Forward. March.
Good evening. You may be seated. I'd like to take a moment to welcome our Board of Trustees, our families and friends of our graduating scholars, our faculty, staff, and founders, and our graduating seniors of the class of 2017. We are so pleased that you are here tonight. It is very common in our society today for celebrations such as this to focus on the individual. Much time is taken in preparation to celebrate these scholars who are graduating Families come from out of town. Parents rally. Photographs are taken. And so much focus is placed on the individual and the graduate. But I want to take a minute to recognize something else and some other people involved in this evening. I find it very intentional and telling that the founders of this great nation began our Constitution with the word we. This country was founded on the idea that it's not a country for just the individual, but it's a country for a citizenry. John Adams was founded on those same principles, and the idea that one day the scholars that walk through our halls will go out and become members of society. Scholars, you will vote, you will make decisions, and you will lead. But you would never have entered the doors of John Adams Academy had it not been for your families, your parents, your loved ones who supported you, loved you, and chose to place you at John Adams Academy. And so tonight, for a moment, instead of just focusing on you, I'd like to take a minute to thank and celebrate the we in this room. Parents, thank you for your decision and choice to send these scholars to John Adams Academy. Thank you for trusting us with them. It's been our pleasure, an honor, and a responsibility we don't take lightly. Scholars, please don't forget to thank your families. They've sacrificed a great deal to bring you here. Don't forget to thank the faculty and staff, the teachers that have rallied behind you. They might have had to coach you along a little bit, but they've come alongside you and they've brought you here to this day. And most importantly, when you walk out the doors tonight, don't forget the we. You see, you've been prepared now to make an impact on the we outside of these doors. You've been prepared to go out and make a difference as a mom, as a father, as a statesman, and as a citizen. And so I encourage you all to walk out this door, not only thinking of the great accomplishment that you made tonight, but of all those who have come behind you and supported you and prepared you for what lies ahead. Thank you so much for your hard work, and we are so very proud of you tonight. At this time, I would like to take a moment and introduce to you our founder, a gentleman who did not just think about himself or his family, but he thought about the we. He thought about you, and he wanted to make a great change in our nation. That change, scholars, begins with you today. May I introduce our founder, Dr. Dean Foreman.
Thank you, Headmaster Brown. She's an eloquent lady, isn't she? We're fortunate to have her. This academy is an evidence of our love for education and each of you. Education is worth almost any sacrifice because it liberates us and sets us free. Abigail Adams felt education was important enough to send her 11-year-old son, John Quincy, a second time over the Atlantic to Europe. John had vowed after the first trip he would never go back. But this is what Abigail told her young son, quote, "These are the times in which a genius would wish to live. It is not in the still calm of life or the repose of a Pacific station that great characters are formed. The habits of a vigorous mind are formed in contending with difficulties. Great necessities call out great virtues. When a mind is raised and animated by scenes that engage the heart, then those qualities which would otherwise lay dormant wake into life and form the character of the hero and statesman." Unquote. We too live in challenging times. I hope you have discovered your genius and special excellence while here at John Adams to light the path of your odyssey. I enjoyed reading the quotes that each of you wrote in the yearbook. They all resonated with me in one way or another. Mr. Wiest wrote, "I have now left the cave." I hope that is Plato's cave. Mr. Joshua Winters wrote, "Carpe diem, seize the day, boys. Make your lives extraordinary." Miss Camille Shaw wrote, "There are far, far better things ahead than any we leave behind." In the spirit of those, I might add, man cannot discover new oceans unless he has the courage to lose sight of the shore. So what comes after graduation? Emancipation, liberation, freedom. These are defined as the act of setting free from dependence or controlling influence. We usually think of freedom from something, but freedom is also to something. By coming to John Adams, you left the cave of rote textbook recitations for the light and world of great ideas and noble principles in the classics. You left the shores of drudgery and duplication for the sea of inspiration and creation, the coast of cultural chaos for the beauty and symmetry of music, art, and mathematics. The beach of slothfulness and idleness has been traded for the ocean of hard work and virtuous mentors. If this path was diligently followed, you now stand at the precipice of, yes, self-governance, personal responsibility, and accountability. Your diploma is an early milestone in your voyage. Allegorically speaking, you will now cast your ship from the shores of home and John Adams to continue your odyssey. I want you to remember, as quickly as this day of emancipation has come, it can also disappear. There are millions still in the cave of ignorance or outside of it, beckoning you to return to the cave of captivity or to join them on the beaches of bondage. They may even ask you, what is so great about being outside the cave anyway? Some may invite you to enter new caves or to put on chains of lustful cravings. Slavery takes many forms, not just racial, religious, political, but also economic, physical, mental, emotional, and economic. The last 240 years, we have rooted out a few of the more visible vestiges of racial, religious, and political slavery. The 21st century culture we live in invites us to trade, however, our freedom for the more subtle bondage that comes in the robes of physical appetites or passions. You know this is happening when you take virtue, order, and beauty and trade it for chaos, confusion, and debauchery. Often slavery takes the form of addictions such as pornography, drug experimentation, substance abuse, or unnatural practices. Other forms of bondage come by way of video gaming or amusement, credit card and consumer debt, or gambling, to name a few. Many today are in denial, or as it were, while Rome burns, the masses were happy with bread and circuses. Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "I think we must get rid of slavery or we must get rid of freedom." Lincoln held education and slavery were incompatible with each other. And here is perhaps the key by Russell Kirk, quote, "When progressive principles have a decaying moral influence, they are decadent." Never forget that core values and character are destiny. Many of the early battles of the Revolution were favorable to the British, allowing them to occupy sheltered Philadelphia in the winter of 1777, where the British may have lost their discipline and work ethic. Benjamin Franklin quipped this way, that the British had not taken Philadelphia so much as Philadelphia had taken the British. In contrast, Washington's men were forced into learn humility, resilience, and other lessons that would be needful for victory. Washington is quoted to say, "To see men without clothes to cover their nakedness, without blankets to lay on, without shoes by which their marches might be traced, by the blood from their feet, is a mark of patience and obedience within my opinion can scarce be paralleled." His fellow patriot Nathaniel Greene concurred, adding that we bear beatings or defeats very well. The more we are defeated, the better we grow. This reminds me of our sports teams, which someone took a jab at today in one of the assemblies. Let me put it to you this way. We did not have our own practice facility or some of the fancy uniforms or trappings, yet our teams proved that it was hard work, teamwork, and sportsmanship that propelled them to great success. I loved watching our scholars compete. Their games were exciting, and they did very well. As they proved, Valley Forge volunteers can do well against anyone. Listen to a man who knew slavery better than anyone else, Frederick Douglass. This is from his autobiography, quote, "I date the entertainment of a deep conviction that slavery would not always be able to hold me within its foul embrace. And in the darkest hours of my career in slavery, this living word of faith and spirit of hope departed not from me, but remained like ministering angels to cheer me through the gloom. This good spirit was from God, and to him I offer thanksgiving and praise. One day his master came home, however, and noticed that his wife had been teaching young Frederick how to read. He scolded her, quote, 'If you teach a slave how to read, there would be no keeping him. It would forever unfit him to be a slave and of no value to his master. It would make him discontented and unhappy.' These words, he said, sank deep into my heart, stirred up sentiments within that lay slumbering, and called into existence an entirely new train of thought. It was a new and special revelation. I now understand," he said, "what had been to me a most perplexing difficulty, to wit, the white man's power to enslave the black man. It was a grand achievement, and I prized it highly. From that moment, I understood the pathway from slavery to freedom. What my master so warmly urged against my learning to read only served to inspire me with the desire and determination to learn. In learning to read, I owe almost as much to the bitter opposition of my master and his mistress. I acknowledge the benefit of both. Later, young Frederick was advised by two Irish friends to run away, and this he resolved to do. But until that hour, his words were, quote, 'Meanwhile, I would learn to write.'" You believe someone could write so eloquently? Beautiful. So, my question to you, who will be your new masters in your newly emancipated world, my young associates? I hope it will be mentors worthy of your character and genius. Choose carefully. In the words of Thomas Paine, you have it in your power to begin the world over again. If you desire to be free, never stop reading, learning, and writing by engaging the classics. John Adams put it this way, "I discovered books and read forever." Thomas Jefferson was no less emphatic when he said, quote, "I have sworn upon the altar of God eternal hostility against every form of tyranny over the mind of man. I invite you to do the same as these great founders did." I now remind you that there has never been a self-made man or woman. Each of you have been created, helped, changed, shaped, nurtured, and built by great parents, teachers, and friends. Share your gratitude with them now and in the future. It is a we proposition, as Headmaster Brown said. One day in the future, after your Trojan War or wars, I hope you can say like Odysseus after your absence from John Adams Academy, in anticipation of coming back to see us. You may recall Odysseus says he petitions for directions, and after he receives the directions, he states, quote, "And may the good gods give you all your heart desires." husband and house, and lasting harmony too. No finer, greater gift in the world than that, when man and woman possess their home, two minds, two hearts that work as one, despair to their enemies, a joy to all their friends, their own best claim to glory. You are not in search of a destination as you leave, you are on a journey. May your odyssey allow you to make the world over again and provide you freedom from all forms of slavery by exercising virtue, reading the classics, and continual learning. In the words of John Adams, independence now and independence forever. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight on this momentous occasion. It is my honor and pleasure to be able to introduce you to two of our outstanding scholars. The first one that you'll be hearing from tonight is our salutatorian, Mr. Quinn Evans.
Hello, everyone. Yes, I am the comic relief. The salutatorian. I'm sure some of you, especially some of the teachers in the audience, are surprised to see me up here. And believe me, I am as surprised as you are. I guess that's what happens when you never check your grades. When progress reports come home, you get surprises. So a week ago, I was just sitting in my class, minding my own business, being completely innocent, and I get called down to the office. I presumed that I had done something wrong and was being called out for it, because I make a lot of mistakes. And lo and behold, I was being told that I was the salutatorian. It took a moment to register because I was so certain that I was being called out. But here I am. I must admit that it stung a little bit when I learned that I was the salutatorian, second place. Really, it's just a consolation prize. I guess that congratulations are in order to Jamie. You did great. You had the really difficult task of beating me. And the rest of you must not have tried at all. It was difficult, I admit. And it almost beat me. I remember one time I came home from school complaining, it's just too hard, and I don't know if I can go on. One of my brothers looked me straight in the face and said, "Quinn, it only goes downhill from kindergarten." And he was right. It's been way difficult. You can imagine how difficult the rest of my school career has been if I thought that kindergarten was difficult. But I've always been a mediocre student, at least until I came to John Adams, where I was strained out. I remember one of my first memories of the school was Mrs. Yurikostis' math class. She is probably surprised to see me up here because I hardly ever turned in any of my homework. Anyways, my first class in her class, I went up to her afterwards, really embarrassed because everyone else was way smarter than I was. She would ask a question and almost immediately someone would have the answer, and I didn't have time to take out my calculator. I felt as if I had been put into the wrong math class. However, I was determined to stick to it, and I worked hard and got better and faster until I could almost keep up with all of them. It was only months later that I realized that they weren't as smart as I thought they were. Sorry. They were just going ahead of her in the book and answering the questions before she even asked them. Not fair. However miffed I was from the deception, I still grew from that experience. I have 1,000 other memories like that one that make up my John Adams experience. I remember all the little quirks of our grade, like our classes, particularly Bryce's fascination with Michael Jackson in 8th grade. I've heard the number 12 shouted more times than I care to remember in Mr. O'Hara's class and other subsequent classes since then. And all the times that the seniors have yelled, what, at each other for no apparent reason. And then the strangled cries of chocolate that could probably be heard throughout the entire school. The secret hand gestures, the vaguely genteel cries of greeting. Come to think of it, the senior class did a lot of random yelling and shouting. But I love these things. They're what make our class, perhaps special is too apt a description. Unique. Unique's better. We should always remember them as great things about ourselves, as things that set us apart from other classes. But we should also remember the not so great things, like the, the laziness, the complaining, and particularly for me, the procrastinating. I actually procrastinated writing this speech until 3 in the morning last night. I know it's pretty amazing already, but just imagine how much more amazing it would be if I had done it beforehand and actually put some real substantiated thought into this. It would undoubtedly be much, much better. That's really the heart of what I'm trying to get across in this, I don't know what you would call it, thing, yes. We need to remember and cherish the good memories that we have, but we also need to remember the not so good so that we can learn and grow from them. I've learned from my high school experience that it's just not worth it to procrastinate. I never want to stay up past midnight again to write some essay or assignment that should have been done like a week before, and had idiotically procrastinated doing, counting the minutes, see how late I could do and still turn it in at 12, exactly. Just imagine how much more sleep I would have. It probably amounts to weeks, probably almost months of sleep that I missed because I procrastinated. And I love sleep more than anything else in the world. But it's not just that. Imagine how much more I could have gotten out of my work, how much better of a person I could be if I had taken the time to actually do it beforehand and make sure that it was quality work. I will forever remember that so that I never do it again. While learning not to procrastinate is certainly a great thing to learn in school, it certainly is not the only thing that I've learned at John Adams. I've learned to be virtuous, or at least to try to be. I've learned about how to reach for the stars and actually achieve those goals. But most importantly, I've learned to be kind and compassionate to almost all the people I meet. That service and genuine love for your fellow man is one of the most important characteristics that anyone can have and act upon. So my final remarks and advice for the graduating class is to remember both the good and the bad and to learn from the bad. Cherish the good and learn from the bad. Be yourself, but become the best that you can be. Love mankind and seek to serve everyone, and these will enable you to have a long and fulfilling life. Thank you.
I'm not really sure how anyone's going to follow that one, but I would like to introduce you, and it is my distinct honor and pleasure to introduce you tonight to our valedictorian, and that is Miss Jamie McKay.
I'm not really sure how I'm going to follow that either, Quinn. Thank you. The other day, as I was thinking about what I wanted to focus my comments around, I thought I'd thumb through some of my old journals and notebooks and see if anything stuck out to me. I found an entry from my very first day at John Adams, and this is what it said. Tuesday, September 6th, 2011. Today was my first day at my new school, John Adams Academy. 6 more years until I graduate. Since the very first day I started at John Adams, I have been thinking about this very moment. Little did I know that those 6 years would fly by so incredibly quickly and leave me in possession of an unparalleled education and surrounded by the best friends in the entire world. When the 28 people in front of me and I decided to come to John Adams Academy, we took what Robert Frost would call the road less traveled. Confronted by a fork in the road, we all took a path that was strange and untrodden. But since then, we have walked, run, skipped, and sometimes even crawled through every day together. Just to give you an idea of some of the things that have crossed our path, this year each one of us successfully wrote and defended a 15-page senior thesis, completed a 10-week senior service project, and wrote and presented senior speeches to the student body. And all of that was for just one class. Throughout every day, we stuck together and never left anyone behind. And if by chance we realized we did leave someone behind, we made sure we went back to get them. Together, we have leapt and bounded over mountains. Together, through our hard work, we have achieved truly amazing things. Together. Now, our one road less traveled has come to an end and branched out to 29 individual paths, and it is time to part ways. We anxiously peek as far down our own path as possible and can hardly keep ourselves from running full speed ahead. We don't know what is waiting for us, but we're dying to find out. To my classmates, as we travel through the rest of our paths, I hope you remember what we learned here, both inside and outside of the classroom. I hope you remember the wonderful relationships we have shared. Our greatness doesn't necessarily come from our outstanding test scores or our exceptionally good looks. Our greatness shines through in our thoughtfulness and our willingness to go out of our way to be kind. We are great because we have valued our classmates and everyone else we meet on an individual level. Your friendships have always buoyed me up and will hold a special place in my heart for a very long time. Though we are just now beginning to separate, I already look forward to the times our paths will cross in the future, and I know I will always run to those intersections. Secondly, continue to work hard. You have worked diligently to get to this point. Now keep it up. Francois Rabelais once declared, "I go to seek a great perhaps." As I thought about this, I realized that our success in this life is not a great perhaps. If we continue to put in hard, concentrated work, our successes will be inevitable. And if you do find yourself slacking off, we're graduating. Sadly, senioritis is no longer an excuse. Our good friend, Josh Winters, has oftentimes reminded us to seize the day, carpe diem. Keep that in mind, but also remember that the corollary to carpe diem is gratitude. Gratitude for simply existing, for having a day to seize, for the air in our lungs and the pounding in our chests. Never wish your days away. Life is filled to the brim with things to be grateful for. Please take the time to acknowledge them. For example, my parents have told me many times that one day I would be grateful they signed me up to go to John Adams, and it looks like they were right. On behalf of John Adams Academy's class of 2017, thank you all very much. If you are sitting here in this crowd, you have played a very powerful role in the life of at least one person here, and your impact on them has had an effect on the entirety of our class. Thank you. To our teachers and the John Adams Academy staff, you mean more than we can say. You have gone beyond teaching us academics. You have taught us to pursue truth, to develop good character, and to value our opportunities. We would like to offer an especially heartfelt thank you to Mrs. Groth and Ms. Eurocostas. Throughout our past 6 years, we have given them many reasons to give up on us, but they always refused. And now, as they watch us go our separate ways and graduate and leave them, they're sitting with a box of tissues under their chair. It is because of their dedication, love, and desire to see us succeed that all 29 members of our graduating class are here tonight and ready to move forward. Finally, and most importantly, our parents. You have been with us through the best of days and the worst of days, and never once allowed us to doubt our ability to accomplish difficult things. Thank you from the deepest parts of our hearts. So now, June 1st, 2017, Today was our very last day at John Adams Academy. The past 6 years have made us undeniably better people. It is now our time to go out and show the world who we've become. Class of 2017, let's make the rest of our lives the best of our lives. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie and Quinn. I'd now like to introduce to you again our Virtues Choir, led by Mr. Greg Blankenbuehler, as they perform the number For Good.
I've heard it said that people come into our lives for a reason, bringing something we must learn, and we are led to those who help us most to grow if we let them. And we help them in return. Well, I don't know if I believe that's true, but I know I'm who I am today because I knew you.
Like a comet pulled from orbit as it passes the sun, like a stream that meets a boulder halfway through the wood. Who can say if I've been changed for the better? But because I knew you, I have been changed for good.
It well may be that we will never meet again in this lifetime. So let me say before we part, so much of me is made of what I learned from you. You'll be with me, like a handprint on my heart. And now whatever way our stories end, I know you have rewritten mine by being my friend.
Like a ship blown from its mooring by a wind of the sea, like a seed dropped by a skybird in a distant wood. Who can say if I've been changed for the better? But because I knew you, because I knew you, I have been changed for good. And just to clear the air, I ask forgiveness for the things I've done you blame me for.
But then I guess we know there's blame to share,
And none of it seems to matter anymore.
Like a ship from its passing
because I knew you, I have been changed.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have the opportunity and the privilege of introducing our keynote speaker for the evening. Dr. Roger Newton has come to us all the way from Ann Arbor, Michigan, and he has had a very long and distinguished career over the past 40 years in the pharmaceutical and biotech life science industries. And if I were to go over all of the accolades and all that he has done, I would take too much time from his opportunity to share his story, his inspirational story with you. So I'll keep my introduction short so that he may, as it says on the front of your program, follow the theme of our year and tell his inspirational story. In short, Dr. Newton has spent the last 40 years researching regulation of cholesterol and lipoprotein metabolism as those two relate to heart diseases and vascular diseases. In other words, he has figured out ways to help save lives. Most recently, he founded a company called Aspiron Therapeutics. He was a co-founder and served as the president and CEO of that company. Under his direction, they raised over $200 million in venture capital to do pharmaceutical research. And now he serves as a board member of that organization and as a scientific advisor. Dr. Newton also serves as an associate professor in the Department of Pharmacology at the University of Michigan Medical School. And Dr. Newton lives in Ann Arbor, Michigan with his wife and has been there for 35 years and has raised his 3 children there. And we give him a welcome and look forward to hearing his inspirational story. Dr. Newton.
Good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm delighted and honored to deliver my commencement speech to the founders, board members, faculty, staff, parents, relatives, and especially the John Adams Academy 2017 class of senior scholars. I want to thank the seniors for taking the time out of their busy schedule to meet with me during our very inspiring Skype conversation last week that was facilitated by several of the members of the staff, Peter Montrose, Kimberly Martin, and Arlene. I thank you for that. What this did was it was a transformational time for me because I was able to understand a little bit more about your interests and some of the questions you gave me over the hour that we spent together. And it really helped renew my interest in preparing this special message to you today that you can carry forth with you as you begin a new chapter of your life. So from that wonderful experience, I wanted to talk about what success in life is. How do you imagine your success? What decisions and pathways do you think will lead you to your success? Many of you know what you want to pursue and how you're going to do it, but it may not turn out the way you expect it. That's what happened with me. Many of you will challenge your minds more than once, or change your minds more than once. Some of you know what you want to do, but aren't sure how to get there. Some of you might have no idea of what you want to do for your career, and the process will be continuing to unfold as you go through your career preparation in college or wherever you intend to go. So what I've done is I've set this up with lessons for some of the comments that I make as I go through my story. There's no perfect plan. There's no process that leads to success. All of these scenarios have equal potential for a person to be successful. Many of us buy into the false assumptions that higher education, hard work, IQ, prestige, winning, wealth, fame, good looks, social networks are key factors that enhance the likelihood of success. Yes, they are certainly helpful, but you must understand that these have no true humanitarian value without strong core values as your foundation. And certainly you know what those core values are here at John Adams Academy. In my view, I can't respect anyone's success, no matter who they are, that isn't built on core values that I respect. I am frequently invited to give presentations because I've had a successful career in science and also in business. Yet when I was starting out as a bench scientist, I never pursued wealth or fame. I just didn't care about that. It didn't matter to me. All I knew from a young age was that I wanted to help people, and I really liked science. So I'll give you a little background on my K through 12 experience, which really was a very strong foundation for me to enter into the career that I chose. During my K through 12 experience, I was naturally curious about nature and the human body. My parents let me wander in the woods behind my house in New Jersey and also in Connecticut, collecting all kinds of things I found interesting, like birds' nests, frogs, turtles, chipmunks, a beehive that I once found when in the wintertime, and I brought it inside and put it in my bedroom, and I can tell you what happened when I came home from school. And my parents said to me, "You figure it out. What are you going to do?" I won't even tell you that story because I won't have any time to finish the rest of my comments. And I also picked up samples so I could look in this microscope that my parents had given me. Mother Nature was my sanctuary and still is today. I would endlessly reflect on its beauty and at times its cruelty and experience the wonderment and mystery of life. One Christmas when I was still in elementary school, my parents bought me a book on the structure and function of the human body. I couldn't get my head out of that book. Then during my first year of junior high school, aka now middle school, I became fascinated with how the heart functions. During an independent study science project with Mrs. McInerney's class, my parents helped me obtain real hearts, samples from mammals, birds, amphibians, to create a display showing their differences and similarities using pipe cleaners, to which I attached identification tags to explain how the heart pumps the blood. I still have the presentation poster boards, believe it or not, after all these years of my project, but I don't have the hearts. In junior high school, Mr. Archer and Mr. Allen's class, and in high school, Mr. Blood's class, I loved my studies of the classics, Greek and Roman philosophers who opened me to the many levels of humanity, wisdom, and debate. Continuing on in high school, in Miss McCorkle's class, I nurtured my strong interest in biology. Dr. Wayne Loveland's humanities class, I was in the awe of Alexis de Tocqueville, who wrote Democracy in America, which was the topic of my senior thesis. Lesson learned here, little did I know that forces were converging to align my scientific interest of the heart with my attraction to the heart and soul of what makes me a human being. These forces of alignment are taking place in your lives right now, and to whether or not you recognize them, have the patience, have the time, they will come your way. Lastly, I was also blessed with the athletic ability to participate and excel in football and other sports, but more importantly, I learned the rules of the game. the importance of being a team player, the ability to be humble both in victory and defeat. And I learned this from a legendary coach in West Hartford, Connecticut by the name of Frank Robinson, or a person we called Robbie with great respect. So you have disappointment in life, and you have to get over that. So my brother and my father went to Duke University, and neither of them were basketball players. That family tradition ended with me because I was rejected. So I decided to attend a small liberal arts college in eastern Pennsylvania named Lafayette College, founded in 1826. I majored in biology. I was so impressed that Lafayette had graduated 2 Nobel Prize winners in biology, and they had actually obtained physiology or medicine from the Nobel Prize Committee. But I forgot to consider the impact of going to an all-male school. Who would have thought, right? Without female professors, classmates, social interaction, I was ready to transfer my sophomore year. Seriously, I think women can function quite well in female colleges, but the same cannot be said for men. Today, Lafayette is 52% women. I would love to go back now. During my freshman year at Lafayette, I was on the football team, but my serious and chronic back injury from high school ended my dreams for playing college football. The football coach, when I met with him, called me, quote unquote, a damned quitter, and that I would be, quote, a quitter for the rest of my life. From then on, he would never recognize my presence on campus. He'd walk by me, I'd say, hey, coach. I was invisible. Although I was shocked, I refused to believe him. Lesson: hold on to your own beliefs and don't let others define you when they truly don't care about you anyway. A successful person knows their own truth and does their best to follow it. College was stressful and very confusing. My more idealistic view of the world broke apart during the peak of the Vietnam War from 1968 to 1972. I grew my hair long, participated in anti-war rallies, and other activities. My interest in pursuing medicine as a career was waning for many reasons. One of those reasons was that I did not have the grades to compete, nor did I perform well in the MCATs for acceptance to medical school. Reality check, exclamation point. My interest in, one of the reasons, in addition, many college graduates with science majors were applying to medical school to avoid being drafted into the armed forces, where they would have a high probability of being sent to Vietnam. Needless to say, I wish I could have had a better filter on all the noise and chaos of the global situation during those years and to focus more on my academics. I was at a crossroads and was probably at the lowest point of my academic career. Lesson: I stand here with great compassion for the enormity of issues facing your class and all classes of 2017 with our significant national and world turmoil. I believe you should be forever hopeful and deal with the harshness of reality, and no matter what, continue support compassion for all people under all circumstances. My renewed inspiration came during my junior year at Lafayette when I began working with a new assistant professor in the biology department by the name of Shaimal K. Majumdar. He was a Bengali from India, and boy did he make me work. He mentored me for 2 years, treated me like a graduate student, and worked me harder than I had ever worked before in my life. He insisted I become skilled and proficient at using different instruments and techniques, which he always said were the tools to my professional toolbox that would get me a job someday. He pushed me beyond my own expectations that led to 2 publications in a peer-reviewed journal and 2 presentations at its annual scientific meeting. This was the beginning of sensing my future as a research scientist. By the time I graduated from Lafayette in 1972, I had written an honors thesis in biology and was very grateful to Dr. Majumdar for all the time he had invested in me with his personal energy and his support. Lesson: success is fostered through mentorship. Find and treasure your mentors. Show them your appreciation. Undergraduate success was great, but I still did not know what I really wanted to do with my life. I still thought I should become a doctor as the family pressure and my own pressure on myself remained, even though deep down I didn't have the passion for it. I struggled with what I thought I should be versus what my heart knew I wasn't to be. I had a hard time focusing after Lafayette. I was all over the map, applying to 4 different graduate schools in botany, genetics, marine biology, and nutritional sciences. I chose to pursue a master's degree at the University of Connecticut in nutritional sciences. It was the only school that accepted me, so I guess I had no choice. I was also offered a research assistantship. Lesson: success isn't necessarily about a clear path, but being open for paths to emerge. During my 2 years at UConn, as we call it, studying nutritional sciences, I was mentored by Robert Jensen, Dennis Gordon, and Bob Pettis, and many opportunistic doors opened for me during that time. I learned that without research collaboration with other students and faculty, the reality was that you cannot be successful on your own in research. Successful people, lesson, surround themselves with people who are smarter than they are and have a different expertise than they do. I was not just making scientific discoveries, but also making self-discoveries, which would become a very important part of my professional DNA. It was during an experiment in the laboratory late one night during my second year at UConn that a dramatic insight and self-discovery came to me. While I was reading a book about atherosclerosis, the process of how cholesterol builds up in and causes heart attacks and prevents blood flow, I suddenly had this question that came before me. What if I could discover a way to treat and prevent this disease, and as a result, decrease the risk and prevalence of heart attacks? I suddenly had chills run through me and throughout my body, which I later understood was my life's purpose being revealed to me. I created this mantra, quote, understand the basic science, find a therapeutic application of the basic science to treat and prevent cardiovascular diseases and make a positive difference in people's lives. I was 23 years old, and I thought that my life's mission was beginning to finally make sense. I headed off to UC Davis for my PhD in nutrition, and in many ways due to the support and mentoring of Dr. Kervin Knox, who was head of the Department of Nutrition at UConn, and also a UCD, a Davis PhD graduate. I lucked out that they waived my out-of-state tuition, and I was provided a research and teaching assistantship to help me financially. But what happened, I ended up with a degrading and autocratic research professor in charge of my PhD program in the Department of Nutrition there at UCD. He didn't allow me any freedom in the lab and showed disrespect to me, and I eventually reached a point where I wanted to just quit, not getting my PhD, but quit his laboratory. So I made the effort to find another place to go and another home to find. I switched to the Department of Physiological Chemistry in the School of Veterinary Medicine, and I decided to work in the laboratory of Richard A. Friedland, or AKA Raff. Raff had twice gone on sabbatical in the laboratory of Sir Hans Krebs, a Nobel laureate in physiology or medicine, and an Alfred Lasker awardee. It was Raff's lab, which we called the land of the freed. Namely, I was one of several people who came from other departments to go and work in his laboratory. That I learned and became immersed in intermediate metabolism and lipid biochemistry as it relates to the food that we eat and how it is used to provide energy for our bodies. Lesson: successful people actively seek solutions to problems rather than dwelling on how things worked or didn't work out for them. The trade-off for the negative experience in the Department of Nutrition is that I was the lab coordinator for my future wife's class in nutrition. She and I have been together now over 40 years. We've been married 38 years this coming January. She is a functional medicine nutritionist and helps her patients avoid or reduce medications by honing in on the underlying environmental and metabolic reasons for their illness. So finding true love in life is certainly a success. I can vouch for that, especially if you find the right person. I took one pharmacology course, pass-fail, when I was doing my PhD at UC Davis, and I passed it. And this stimulated my interest in the discovery and development of new medicines. After my PhD, I went to UC San Diego Medical School and worked there in La Jolla to complete my postdoctoral fellowship in the laboratory of Dr. Daniel Steinberg in a specialized center of research in arteriosclerosis. I was one of the first people to work on a compound that became one of the statins, or what we call in the vernacular an HMG-CoA reductase inhibitor, which lowers the bad cholesterol and hopefully prevents people from having premature heart attacks. Here I knew I needed to find a team if I was going to be forever successful. And fortunately, a British fellow by the name of Dr. Paul Durrington joined me there, and we both became fast friends, as did our wives, and became scientific collaborators. Paul and I published 2 scientific papers in peer-reviewed journals, and we continued our collaboration and friendship to this day. Lesson: when my research became our research, then success followed. Also, I believe that people don't work for me, they work with me. The team is everything. Dr. Steinberg brought me a sample of this first statin that never made it to the marketplace. The statins were derived originally from fungi and bacteria, who were very smart in being able to keep other bacteria from growing near them, and later was synthesized in the laboratory, such as at Warner Lambert Park Davis, where I did my work. I was excited to learn every laboratory technique and procedure to be used to perform my research on statins. One day, I happened to see a letter from a drug company, pharmaceutical company called Warner Lambert Park Davis, advertising a senior scientist position in the atherosclerosis section in the pharmacology department at the R&D facility in Arbor, Michigan. I immediately sought an interview, went there and spent a day and a half getting grilled by the scientists there. It's pretty exhausting. And when they offered me the position, I jumped at the opportunity immediately. I was actually going to live out my mantra, which I had discovered at my time at UConn. The reactions from my colleagues actually were quite negative. They said to me, "You're selling out the industry. What's wrong with you?" After being so long working in nutrition and academia, I felt somewhat guilty, and I simultaneously interviewed for academic positions, but nothing was nearly as challenging as the one at Warner Lambert Park Davis. Why? Why are you doing this? Because Warner Lambert Park Davis was considered a decade behind the times in cardiovascular research, particularly in this particular area of research I was looking for, inhibiting cholesterol synthesis. So why would I want to go there in the first place? My reason was because that was where I could make the most difference. Lesson: successful people don't stay in comfort zones, nor let others determine their paths. Successful people find opportunity where others aren't looking. At Warner Lambert Park Davis, I was given the responsibility of leading 2 research groups, one in the atherosclerosis department in pharmacology and one in the drug discovery team. 17 years later, after 4, quote, failures, that's what the business people said, but 4 learnings of compounds that didn't make it, we finally had the compound that is known as Lipitor. And I was considered the co-discoverer and product champion of that compound. I was receiving worldwide recognition. The drug sold the first $1 billion in its first 11 months on the market, which at the time was considered the fastest launch of any drug in the pharmaceutical industry. That was in 1997. Prior to going off patent in November of 2011, Lipitor had accumulated over $125 billion in sales from 1997 to 2011. By far the largest selling drug ever, and is credited with saving millions of people's lives from not having premature heart attacks. Sounds good, doesn't it? Sounds great. Let's all celebrate. But overnight, that changed. I walked into my work the day before the Good Friday in 1996 and saw that my entire department of 30 people had been reassigned elsewhere. I was left with 2 technicians, 1 scientist, a shared secretary, and a boss of my worst nightmares. That was how they rewarded me for that work. Why did this happen to me and so secretly? It was a power broker move to eliminate me from being considered for a higher position in the chain of command. There were higher-ups that were threatened by my success. I was devastated. I was in disbelief. My team was beside themselves too and threatened to go on strike. I found that a few people on my team actually distanced themselves from me to be on the, quote, winning side. Most people were afraid to speak out. Not me. I went all the way to the chairman and CEO, but to no avail. Lesson. Successful people understand that some people are threatened by the success of others. Successful people look to find positive solutions when faced with betrayal, disappointment, and insecurity. A year later, a venture capital investor contacted me to start my own biotech business. What? I don't know how to start a company or run a business. Nice offer, but very scary to me, and I put it off for quite a while. I was accustomed to the organizational security of the corporate pharmaceutical world that ironically no longer provided me any job security at all. So it was a Sunday, and I was on my way to Borders Bookstore, which was started in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and it was in November of 1997. And I said a prayer asking for guidance about what I should do. I was very frustrated. I stumbled over a stack of books sitting on the floor, blocking a passageway. I was blown away by what I saw, and I read on the back green leaflet of the book. It stated in large, bold print, quote, "Don't let your company kill you." That was a wake-up call, let me tell you. I then flipped the book over, read the title, Deep Change, Discovering the Leader Within by Robert E. Quinn. I looked to the sky, and I said, with an open mind and heart, thank you. I went home, I read the book, and I called Bob up. And we had 2 breakfasts together over the next 3 or 4 months. But I have a lesson. Successful people put out their intentions, sometimes to a higher power, and open themselves to coincidences and signs that might lead them to the right answers. I met with Bob Quinn, and he mentored me through a very positive transition from leaving Warner Lambert Park Davis to starting Esperion Therapeutics. It was very hard for me to leave because I had handpicked the scientists who were part of the 30 people that were moved into another department. Bob helped me to create the company name, its core values, its mission, and its vision statements. The name Esperion is derived from esprit de corps, or vibrant teamwork, between people who have the same focus in what they want to accomplish. Esperar, the Spanish or the French or the Italian, to hope, and the suffix ion resulting from. So our mission statement then was, through vibrant teamwork, discover and develop new medicines in the hope of treating and preventing cardiovascular diseases. Our core values: respecting individual dignity, promoting vibrant teamwork, and which leads to excellence in science. Our vision statement: to explore, to create, discover, and build. Anabolic, not catabolic, things to do. And build every day that we are at work. What was wonderful is when we used to go to Europe and talk about our company and try to raise money, they would be saying, "I love your name, Esperion Therapeutics. What a beautiful name. I will invest just for the name." So I am deeply indebted to his friendship, his generosity, his mentorship, and over the past 20 years, all that he has done for me, and particularly creating the Center for Positive Organizations in the business school at the University of Michigan. I have been an executive in residence there, and I'm giving back over the last 2.5 years, as I told him I would, giving lectures and providing sponsorship and fellowships for students who need financial aid. Lesson here: successful people give back or pay it forward. New lessons were learned in the world of big pharma and finance also with this company, Esperion Therapeutics. In the aftermath of 9/11, when there was no financing capital available for over 18 months, I had to lay off 25% of my workforce. to save $10 million for the clinical trials that needed to be formed. With the help and guidance of Bob Quinn and his colleagues, Asperian was able to heal after this devastating blow to our company. And it was just a very difficult time because I was basically blamed for part of it, like I knew that 9/11 was coming, and I had to walk the talk and meet with people to try and get them back on course. It was truly a very difficult time, but one I really showed my leadership to myself as well as my colleagues. Asperian was also manipulated on the stock market by a hedge fund that nearly destroyed us. The person responsible went to prison for 4.5 years for what he did to Asperian and 2 other companies. They caused our stock price to tank almost to nothing. And we eventually sued them and got restitution for that. White-collar crime. It happens, even to the best of people who have the best intentions. Asperian pulled through these crises because we took action and we remained hopeful as we dealt with the harshness of our collective reality. Lesson: successful organizations and their leaders persevere in adversity. So Asperian went on to develop a very interesting new HDL therapy drug and was bought by Pfizer for $1.3 billion. The caveat was that I had to work for Pfizer and give up all the control I had over the product that was eventually put on the shelf to keep competition out of the marketplace. Again, here I was back in a corporate pharmaceutical world that I never thought I'd be back in again. 2 years later, Pfizer closed all the R&D facilities in Michigan after another drug of theirs failed, resulting in 3,500 people losing their jobs, including me. So people used to say to me, what are you going to do next? Well, I said to my boss after he told me, can I get the name back? Can I get some patents back? And I want to restart the company. And he said, let's see if anybody wants your technology. Nobody wanted it. So I said, hip, hip, hooray. So 2 years later, after 50 weeks of negotiating with Pfizer to get the patents back and the name back, we had Asperian Therapeutics 2.0. Today we are in phase 3 clinical trials with a compound to serve those patients who can't tolerate statins due to a side effect of muscle pain and muscle weakness. Yet we can still get the kind of LDL lowering that you get with a statin, and hopefully also the protection from having heart attacks. And this is really what we're waiting for now, is to get the results to be able to determine the outcome of our clinical trials that are actually looking at the capability of reducing heart disease. So what is success in life? You're celebrating success in life today. This is part of your success as you begin your next chapter. And I congratulate all of you for all the hard work that you've done. I congratulate your parents, your relatives, the faculty and staff, the founders, and everybody involved in this school. I've spent the last 36 hours in nirvana as far as I'm concerned when it comes to education. Very welcomed. I played games with second graders. I listened to this beautiful music that came from the choir. I was part of the promenade, and it's been a tremendous experience for me to be here. So I hope that I provided some lessons for you to think about and ponder as you prepare the next chapter of your life. I also wanted to reinforce the universality and importance of the 10 core values that you live every day here at John Adams Academy, which should provide a strong framework for how you conduct your life going forward. I wish you all the best of luck, and may you live long and prosper, and may you always remember your mentors, remember your friends. Don't forget them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Newton, for sharing a lifetime of successes, challenges, and lessons with our scholars and our guests this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, I would now at this time like to ask for our scholars. This is such a proud moment. I'm so proud of you all. I would like to ask you to please stand for me, scholars. Esteemed Board of Trustees, Dr. Foreman, I would like to recommend these scholars standing before you for graduation.
Thank you, Headmaster Brown. On behalf of the Board of Directors, we accept your recommendation.
Scholars, you may be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce to you our scholars who are graduating. Kyle Algar. Shanna Angel. Leah Bergman. Bryce Boudier.
Thank you.
Alan Dodge. Quinn Evans.
Thank you.
Troy Gallagher. Jared Hansen. Miss Autumn Harrigan. Alejandro Heredia. Miss Claire Hoops. Mr. Dylan Johnston. It's already hard enough, guys.
Oh, hey, there it is.
Miss Eliza Kelly. Emmanuel Lopez. Nicole Macarag. Mr. Travis Matthews. Jamie McKay. Marissa Marin. Hector Pena. Tyler Pomerantz. Callista Rooney. Marissa Santos. Luke Scribner. Camille Shaw. Noah Stevenson. Miss Taylor Weiss. Andrew Weist. Mr. Joshua Winters. Mackenzie Wyatt. Class of 2017, will you please stand? The graduation ceremony is filled with symbolism and celebration, as we've seen this evening. The use of the cap and gown began in the 12th century, and we wear it today to denote the gravity of the occasion. Caps, sometimes called mortarboard because the shape resembles the tray that bricklayers used to hold the mortar, became popular in the 14th and 15th centuries and signifies the superiority and intelligence. But the tassel became a tradition only in the 19th century. What began as a decoration to the cap has now come to symbolize the scholar's progress from candidate to graduate. You began with the tassel on the right side as a candidate for graduation. Ladies and gentlemen, you may now turn your tassel to the left, signifying your completion and graduation from John Adams Academy and the beginning of the next phase of your academic life. Congratulations. Scholars, your names are now written permanently in the story of John Adams Academy. Board, faculty, parents, and loved ones, thank you for your dedication and contribution to the success of John Adams Academy and our graduating class. If you are faculty or a board member, will you please stand? Thank you for your service. Ladies and gentlemen, will you please rise and join us for the retiring of the colors?
Forward, march. Carry colors. Ready. Face. Forward, march. Detail. Halt.
It is with sincere thanks and gratitude that we thank you for joining us this evening in celebration of the class of 2017. Congratulations.